Hello, world, and welcome to stackCast, your go-to source for all things related to cloud security and cybersecurity compliance. I'm your host, Martin Rieger, and I'm thrilled to embark on this journey with you as we navigate the ever-changing landscape of cloud technology and cybersecurity. In a world where our reliance on digital technology is an all-time high, the need for secure and compliant data practices through states and federal government has never been more crucial. We hope to make this podcast not only informative, but engaging and interactive. So we encourage you to share your thoughts, questions, and experiences. And who knows, you might be featured in one of our future episodes. Thank you for tuning in to stackCast. We can't wait to embark on this enlightening journey with you. Let's discover, design, and deploy our digital future together. Thank you for joining us today. We have the pleasure of speaking with Gaurav Pal, also known as GP. He is the CEO and co-founder of stackArmor. We're going to begin, GP, by learning just a little bit about you and stackArmor. So can you tell us just a little bit about your background and also what led you to co-found a company that specializes in providing NIST-based cybersecurity and compliance solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Martin, thanks for having me on stackCast. Really excited to see the kickoff. Really, it's stackArmor and, my background are shaped by an interesting project that I did in 2009 for a program that was initiated by the White House to monitor spending and, prevent waste, fraud, and abuse on the almost $800 billion of Stimulus Act funding at that time. And so I had the privilege of supporting a program where we migrated the first workload and built the first government-wide system on a cloud platform, at that point, AWS. And what was really exciting about it is that that initial first project in 2009 and then 2010 led to the creation of the Cloud First initiative, which ultimately led to the creation of the FedRAMP program. And so what was very apparent then is that cloud was brand new and it was going to change how we did IT and hosting. And it was just exciting to see how we had to also then rework how we thought of cybersecurity and compliance. And so based on that experience, my co-founder and I, we had the privilege of supporting nearly 200 plus migrations at agencies like Department of Treasury, Federal Reserve, USDA, and others. And we kind of learned a few lessons. One of them was that implementing strong cybersecurity controls as embodied in NIST security frameworks like 800-53 was incredibly difficult for organizations. And so as my co-founder Fawad and I sort of traveled that journey, we just felt that we had learned a lot during those initial projects and migrations. And we felt that an approach that focused a lot on standardization and automation was the only way we could go in and enable this transformation. And that led to the birth of stackArmor, essentially.
So with the name, right, I think some of what you described, during those formative years, which also I believe was when the very first federal CIO was put in place. Can you maybe give me an idea of what was the vision, right? I think you described some of the processes and the kind of work, but what ultimately is the vision behind stackArmor and why you guys decided to start stackArmor?
Yeah, great question. So really, what was apparent to us when we founded stackArmor in 2015, 2016 timeframe was that cloud was here, cloud was real, and it was the perfect solution for federal agencies to go in and modernize and deliver better services, be also able to deal with a lot of the ebbs and flows of demand. And cloud platforms certainly offered all of those characteristics. However, we felt that a lot of folks would struggle with ensuring the security and compliance levels for their workloads and their applications. And so we felt that the name stackArmor would be very appropriate from the perspective that we wanted to go in and provide a solution, hence the name Stack, and armor in the sense that we wanted to go in and protect and help our customers defend from cyber threats. And so that really was the vision behind the company, is to help our customers overcome some of the challenges associated with cloud security and compliance by delivering them a well-matured stack that could go in and help take care of their security issues. And we would continue to offer a set of services and solutions to continue to help them defend their data and access to unauthorized access to their workloads, and hence the word armor. So that was the vision behind the company. And it's interesting that that vision, even 8 or 7 years later, still holds true. And so that essentially was our mission, to help our customers secure their workloads on cloud platforms.
So, you touched on a key point. It's been almost 8 years since you first launched stackArmor. And, with the speed of technology and change, 8 years ago compared to today, we've just made huge leaps in technology. Can you describe a little bit about how stackArmor has evolved over time to keep up with those changes and keep up with the compliance regulations that continue to come out?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think what's been interesting over the last 8 years is I've seen 3 large vectors of change. The first and foremost is definitely the technology, right? So, what we knew as the cloud in 2015, 2016 is very different from today, right? So you see a continuum from a cloud solutions perspective between starting with virtual machines, then from virtual machines going to container-based solutions, or, as we now have standardized around Kubernetes clusters, and then also serverless. And so if you look at the security requirements and the compliance requirements across that continuum, they are different because the roles and responsibilities and boundary definitions change. And so it's incredibly important as a technologist to stay abreast, to understand where the threat vectors are, and then more importantly, though, continue to meet the security controls, because the security controls are almost like a more durable security fabric. And so while technology might change, you have to constantly think about how are you going to be able to satisfy those security requirements while using these new technologies. And that's been a very exciting continued journey for us. And I think we have successfully traveled those security, the ongoing technological changes, and being able to apply these modern security techniques to them. I think the second one that's been also a change is around the security framework, right? So we started off with 800-53 Rev 3, and then had the cloud overlays, then came Rev 4, and now we are on Rev 5. So there are definitely the regulatory framework and the controls keep changing, and finally we just see an expansion of the compliance framework fabric, right? So you started off with FISMA RMF, then you had FedRAMP, now we have StateRAMP, we have CMMC 2.0. So it's just been interesting to see sort of this evolution.
So as you describe that, one of my curiosities here is what would you say were some of the challenges that stackArmor faced in the early days? Because the type of knowledge, experience, and things that you're describing certainly don't come without lessons learned, right? And I think to become an expert and the best at what you do, if we talk about the 10,000 hours approach to mastering something, can you describe some of the issues you guys faced early on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were very privileged to have a great team. We had built some great relationships, and I think more than anything else, we had great friends who believed and trusted in us as we sort of embarked on stackArmor. And also, I think, as a CEO and founder of a brand new company, I think being in the Washington, D.C. metro area and having access to, government contracts, federal funding programs, things like that was tremendously helpful for us, right? So I still remember we bid on a contract at the GSA for cloud.gov in 2016 timeframe. And, we went through an interview process and they selected us. And that was our first ATO project where we actually had the privilege of supporting the cloud.gov enablement and ATO project. And so a lot of those early projects really help fund the company and allowed us to invest in, what would become the threat alert security platform product. But it was constantly, figuring out how do we go in and define our value proposition, what really is stackArmor great at, and how do we convey that value proposition to customers. And so again, like I said, we were very privileged to win some really fantastic contracts initially at DoD and GSA, as well as commercial contracts with organizations like SAP and S2. And again, I think we were privileged in the sense that we had a lot of that prior experience, which was valuable to our customers and clients, and we were able to get to work almost immediately in the areas that we felt we had some unique, initial learning, and again, continue to learn from that.
Awesome. That is fantastic. So now that we have kind of a good idea of the history and why you're here and how you got here, can you tell us just a little bit or give us an overview of in today's modern age, 2023, what exactly does stackArmor do for customers and what kind of regulatory frameworks do you support?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the markets that we play in are, when we sort of created the business model for stackArmor, we put the NIST security controls at the center of our universe. And so what we do is we help organizations and clients that depend on these NIST security controls to achieve their end state compliance. So for example, if you're a commercial ISV, then you must go in and meet, for example, FedRAMP requirements. And so what we have done is for this expanding universe of customers, basically delivered in a box 3 key things. So number one, based on our, at this point, decade plus of experience in helping organizations meet and maintain NIST security controls, we provide them with a secure by design hosted environment, what we call application landing zone. That application landing zone has a couple of interesting attributes. Number one, it's in boundary. So therefore, the data never leaves the customer's environment. That helps with the assessment. And I think it's a great security model. The second thing is we go in and since we've standardized the architecture, we provide as a complete bundle the entire documentation package for a FedRAMP, FISMA, or CMMC, or even StateRAMP program. And then finally, and this is an area that a lot of organizations struggle with, is we go in and provide what we call post-accreditation or post-ATO continuous monitoring. So this unique combination of providing a secure architecture along with the documentation package and then the post-ATO continuous monitoring, I think is the unique combination that customers really value because it saves them time, it saves them money. They oftentimes don't have the skill set and the knowledge and the expertise. So it's this unique combination of people, process, technology, automation, and standardization, which is what stackArmor is all about.
So end-to-end advisory, a complete documentation solution plus NIST architecture and engineering support that provides application landing zones as an all-in-one solution, right? That's just fantastic. So can we maybe talk about a couple different things? Myself, I've been a part of many consulting firms, and I've worked with a lot of companies over the year. And folks might say, well, hey, GP, there's a lot of cloud security and compliance firms out there. There's a lot of folks who are also sort of gearing, their solutions and offerings towards this. How does stackArmor separate and differentiate itself from the other, sort of cloud security and compliance firms out there?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Martin. And the reality is there are a lot of smart people out there, right? I mean, it's really interesting to see the cloud security and compliance landscape evolve. I think what makes stackArmor really different, I think at the end of the day, is I think it's people, right? And so one of the things we set out when we started the company was we would like to go in and provide a rich canvas for professional growth for folks that were really interested in doing cutting edge work on cloud, cybersecurity, and compliance. And so the one of the ways we sort of implemented that early on, which was a difficult decision for us, was that we wouldn't necessarily go in and pursue, what we call time and materials contracts where we would, perhaps do placement of people or, pursue those kind of deals. And so while that was fairly lucrative and fairly large at that time, we just focused on building what we call a solutions business around the threat alert security platform brand. And what that basically meant was that our people had an opportunity to learn all the new technologies while continuing to innovate. And so I think our people are top-notch consultants. They have a tremendous amount of experience in cloud security and compliance, and they continue to innovate. I think that continuous learning and innovative culture that we have is, I think, a key part to our success. And the way that translates into a competitive, I think, differentiated solution is we are never, we are never still, right? So we're constantly innovating, whether it is, going from virtual machines to, Kubernetes clusters, or it is to, look at serverless deployments. Right now, we're working on some really exciting things with streamlining the end-to-end compliance process with modern evolutions like the OSCAL language from NIST, also going in and using different kinds of, not necessarily AI, but automation around process streamlining, and how do we go in and do automated tracking, alerting, and things like that. So it's, again, that culture of continuous innovation and just that continued quest for making things better. And a key example of that is Atom, our ATO machine, which truly takes it to the next level, where we are able to deploy our environments even faster. So I think that sort of intellectual curiosity and that people-centric culture that encourages innovation and continued growth is, I think, a key part to what makes us different.
Awesome. So there was a key word there that you kind of started with, which is the landscape, right? There are obviously, many different cloud security frameworks. There are, regulated markets. There are, multiple infrastructures that folks have options to leverage. But in your opinion, can you give just a brief overview of the landscape of cloud security and maybe just dig into where stackArmor fits into that landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the security landscape and cybersecurity and landscape just continues to evolve, and the canvas just keeps growing bigger. For example, we generally see a lot of commercial frameworks, and we also obviously have the government frameworks for cybersecurity. I think, the way we look at cybersecurity is, and kind of that's our point of view, is that, the cybersecurity domain is increasingly important, right? So the FedRAMP Authorization Act was signed a couple of months ago. The National Cybersecurity Strategy was released. And so clearly cybersecurity is important. And I think what's also interesting is a lot of us had a wake-up call with the Colonial Pipeline hack that happened where, essentially it was not, cybersecurity was not just something that happened and, you kind of lost your identity or somebody hacked into your bank account. There was some real, actual pain in terms of our day-to-day life with, not having gas. I remember, I was driving from the office in Tyson's back to my house and I didn't have gas. And I was wondering, where was I going and get gas, because all the gas stations in Virginia were, in this area were running low on gas. And so we continue to see this evolution of the application of government cybersecurity frameworks like the NIST controls into a larger segments of, I think, the economy, right? So, for example, the TSA just issued guidance on helping protect the aviation sector. EPA just issued guidance around protecting the water utilities. So from our perspective, we want to be a solution in just helping these organizations do a easier, faster job in achieving a secure and compliant end state using NIST controls. And I think that's where we differentiate ourselves. And that's, I think, the landscape that we play in, as opposed to, other maybe perhaps commercial frameworks and such, where, again, I think the NIST framework is, I really think, the gold standard for security.
So I think the importance of cloud security is something that even those who do not work in the field understand the importance of. We all leverage cloud in some shape, form, or fashion, whether working with the United States government or not. It's how we get there, and what I would say, as you've described, that compliance piece that ensures those independent software vendors or ISVs are meeting, those minimum security baselines. But in your opinion, what would you say to those ISVs in terms of why is cloud security so critical, for the ISVs and software developers who want to do business with the United States government, provide services, and it's not limited to the U.S. government. That includes city, state, local governments. They all have the need for cloud services. So what exactly do these regulatory markets and requirements and compliance initiatives mean for those ISVs?
I think that's a great question, Martin. And, again, I had the privilege of being at an event in the Valley a couple of months ago. And, I was asked the question, of course, Silicon Valley is a great place of innovation, lots of, amazing entrepreneurs and, software vendors with amazing capabilities. And one question was, hey, government compliance or, NIST and controls and, all of this stuff is hard and burdensome. Why should we go in and invest in this? And, what's sort of the motivation for this? And, what I always feel is that the federal market and, what I call, as you said, the ancillary markets, right? So state, local, tribal, those markets are very resilient, right? So right now we're in a difficult economic environment. And so if I am a ISV and I'm funded by a private equity firm or venture capital and I'm an entrepreneur, look at all the layoffs that are happening in the commercial world right now. If you're looking for a steady, resilient, and, what I would call recession-proof market, it's the government market. And so if you have an amazing solution, whether it's in curing insomnia or having an amazing communication and collaboration capability, or, having the ability to streamline some unique healthcare process. While you're certainly going to be successful in the commercial world, but there is a huge untapped market in the government sector. And if you look at some of the numbers, the federal government spends, north of $80 billion a year in IT. And, if you add to that the funding in state and local governments, that number just keeps getting bigger. And what's equally interesting and relevant is while the commercial sector has been adopting cloud for many years at an amazing pace, the federal agencies and the government sector is just sort of still getting geared up. And so I think the key benefit to ISVs, and what I always share with them is, hey, if you're looking for diversification of your revenue base into a resilient, growing market for SaaS-based solutions, then FedRAMP, StateRAMP, and some of these compliance frameworks are a great investment. And not only that, in that panel that I had a privilege of participating, they were sharing how the government of Singapore actually looks at FedRAMP as the gold standard. And so if you're a commercial organization and you've gone through the FedRAMP process, then, for what I have seen and understand is even banks and commercial organizations, they'll go to the FedRAMP.gov marketplace and check you out. And so, you're really operating in a very unique and differentiated marketplace where I think you have an opportunity to really shine and, grow your business.
So what would you say, for those ISVs out there that are okay, I want to do this. I'm considering jumping into the federal marketplace and, taking my software or application platform, whatever the solution is, maybe it's a full stack, into, meeting those regulated requirements like FedRAMP, StateRAMP, CMMC, and things like that, even RMF and FISMA. What would you say is the most common, we'll just try to limit it to one, but the most common misconception that ISVs have when looking at something like, say, FedRAMP and cloud security?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the biggest misconception they have is based on, in my view, old data. They go and do a bunch of, web searches, and they somehow develop this mindset and this opinion that it is an unsurmountable hurdle, or it's going to, take them 2 to 3 years and cost them, $3, $4, $5 million. And, while that might have been true 5 or 6 years ago, I don't think that's the case. We've had plenty of success with, ISVs, small organizations that, have very successfully gone through that process. It is, it's a lot easier today than it was, like I said, 3 or 5 years ago. I think it can be done in 1/3 the time and, also 1/3 the cost. So I think that's the biggest misconception I think ISVs have, is that it's going to take too long and cost too much. And I think the state of the art today is, the reality is that, again, innovative solutions and automation have really brought down that cost and even the time commitment. And also, I think what they also feel like is, oh, we'll have to hire all of these people that are just, FedRAMP experts. And so that's really not the case again. We encourage ISVs and entrepreneurs to stay true to their core competency, which is to develop and deploy amazing software. And there are solutions in the marketplace where some of the other aspects that might be more challenging for them can be taken care of in a very cost-effective manner.
Fantastic. So, with that being said, there are a lot of changes happening in real time, new technologies, new trends, even future predictions of where cybersecurity is going to go. Can you talk a little bit about some of the current trends you're seeing in cloud security and compliance, especially when it comes to the U.S. government, right? who tends to lead the way and, above all else, creates these regulations and compliance requirements in order to provide, more secure operating environments within the cloud. So what kind of trends would you say you're seeing, at this time at least, or right now?
Yeah, no, Martin, that's you're so right. I mean, I think the biggest thing that we see emerging is a real close look at the supply chain, right? As events, with the SolarWinds breach have shown, you want to the agencies and the FedRAMP PMO and the different government cybersecurity frameworks are starting to take a real hard look at how software is built, who is building them. And so if you look at the latest guidance around the software bill of materials or SBOMs, also the big focus on the secure software development framework, SSDF, we just continue to see this drive and push to go in and make sure that the software and the services that are being delivered to federal agencies, as well as what we call the critical infrastructure sector, including sectors like for example space and aerospace and defense. On the commercial side, we just see those topics becoming very, very important. And so there again, ISVs and organizations that build in some of those security capabilities early on, I think will have a huge advantage in being able to address some of those requirements. Again, zero trust is a big deal, right? And so, how do you go in and ensure that you're implementing a solution where the identity of the user as well as, system processes is delivered in a manner that it meets the zero trust principles. And so I think those are some of the key topics that we see. They're embodied in the NIST SB 800-53 Rev 5 release. And I think those are the areas that, again, I think agencies will continue to focus on and drive the security bar higher in response to some of the challenges that we see today.
Okay. So what kind of advice, would you give to businesses out there, small, medium, and large, who are considering entering, again, the federal cloud marketplace, and maybe a little bit about how can they evaluate the gap from where they are today, either as a commercial product or maybe even a federal product that they've developed as an on-prem solution that they potentially might seek cloud compliance for. What would you say to those folks who are, taking a look at this and maybe want to dip their foot in the pool, so to speak?
Yeah, no, absolutely. First thing I would say is definitely do your research, right? So the FedRAMP PMO has a great resource, fedramp.gov. I think, the folks at the FedRAMP PMO do a fantastic job in just providing a lot of, hand-holding and information, because they, again, see the value in increasing the size of the FedRAMP accredited cloud marketplace. So I would go in and say, start there. Also, as you sort of do your research, we have spent a lot of time and, energy in creating high value collateral and content. So for example, we've developed a white paper, how to prepare for FedRAMP. So again, I would say, begin the journey by doing some research, see kind of what's out there. And as you kind of develop a sense and understanding, I think it's important to engage with conversations with folks that have done this kind of work in the past. So, for example, engage in a conversation with us and talk a little bit about, how we can go in and offer a, pre-discovery questionnaire and assessment where we can walk in and without any cost to you, go in and take a look at your architecture, your model, and go in and prescribe to you some very tailored, solution options. Also, the folks at Carasoft have an amazing program which is specifically designed for emerging technologies and program vendors. where you can engage with them, and they have a bunch of resources to help with either funding support or market access, contracts, and things like that, right? So I think as organizations and entrepreneurs and ISVs look at the government market and they want to enter it, I think there are a lot of resources that are available to you to go in and make this an informed decision and guide you along the way.
Awesome. And all very, very sound advice. So I want to bring it back around to you for just a moment as we start to wrap up. As a leader, as a CEO, as one of the foremost experts in this field, throughout the government and across the industry, what advice would you give to someone who is really looking to begin or start a career in cloud security or I'll throw compliance in there?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, Martin. And, and more than, just that, it's a pretty important topic, right? I mean, the fact of the matter is that the workforce and, talent is at a premium. And for anybody who is, a young professional looking for a career pathway, I think cybersecurity, cloud, and compliance are extremely, extremely good professional career choices as you sort of look to, develop your career. I think the biggest thing that I would say is, a lot of times, I almost feel like when somebody hears the word cybersecurity, they immediately look at this, image where, there's the big room with lots of flashing monitors and, you're kind of, in this little situation room, and, that's what your career, if you joined a career and, if you had a career in cybersecurity, that's what your life would be. And that's just not true, right? I mean, you have so many different choices in terms of, what you could do. For example, you could, become really proficient at, consulting, where you provided strategic advisory. So if you're really good at, people skills and have a knack at analyzing problems and coming up with interesting solutions, you could also, you might be great at writing, or you might have a very analytical mind. You could go in and develop a career in compliance where you take a real close look at for example, the NIST cybersecurity controls, try and understand the intent, and then try and help organizations interpret those controls and, how to go in and meet them. So there is a huge canvas and wide variety of career choices that you have within this tremendously diverse field. So it's not just, it's not just for nerds and geeks, and you're not necessarily always going to be, hunched over a laptop and watching blinking screens. So there is a huge, wide variety. And so whether it's you have an interest in technology, or whether you have an interest in, some legal-like aspects of interpreting controls and how to apply them, I think there's a huge, huge, immense variety. And, I think we're just getting started. I think, while IT and, cloud has sort of taken hold, we see cybersecurity catching up now, right? So there's a huge investment in this area. AI is going to change so many things, both for the good and bad. And so I think we need good talent. And, if you're interested in cybersecurity, just reach out to us and, ask us, what are the kinds of career choices you can make. But yeah, I think, take a look at this field and you'll be surprised at the wide variety of options you have.
Awesome. Well, I would like to thank you for your time and your insights today, and the opportunity to learn more about stackArmor and the compliance solutions, as well as consulting capabilities. To learn more about stackArmor and how they can help you with your compliance needs or anything cloud related, please visit www.stackarmor.com. You can also find stackArmor on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, and be sure to share. So please tune in next time to learn more about FIPS 140 encryption standards and the certification process as we speak with the CEO of SafeLogic, Ingve Jervis. That's it for today. Thank you.